when we win, I want to win together. I want to win united and in solidarity, and I do not want to win in a way that leaves any communities behind.
We're live on YouTube.
That even within the left, yes, in the left there is racism.
Me and Dr.
Yes,
Seth
in the
Farber.
left there is anti-Semitism. Yes, in the left there is Islamophobia. So we too are not exclusive of the very diseases that we claim to be fighting outside of the movements that we are a part of. We also, as the left, as the progressive left, have to understand and learn how to disagree. What we do to each other in the movement is immediately when we don't agree with someone's position, we don't try to engage them in a dialogue to understand their experience or where they come from or why is it that they hold that particular position. Immediately what we do in the movement is we crucify people who are our sisters and our brothers because we'd rather go online and take them down instead of understand them and try to educate them and build them back up. That's not the kind of movement that I want to be a part of. Now, in a lot of the parts of the left, this is not a criticism of every single individual that is in the left. I'm talking about just in general. Oftentimes when I'm in spaces, people are talking about different issues, and I think to myself, okay, so y'all want to talk about Syria. All right, let's have a conversation about Syria. Where are the Syrians at in this conversation? You want to talk about Palestine? You want to know what the Palestinians want? Where are the Palestinians at in that movement on that table? You want to tell black people how to run a movement? Where are the black people at? We have to understand that when we pick up on issues, that those who are the most directly impacted need to be centered because those closest to the pain are also closest to the solution. You know, something we also don't do often in the left is sometimes I walk into a space and I look around and I ask myself a very simple question that we need to all ask ourselves. Who's missing at this table? Can't have an anti-war movement and look around the table and you got 25 people trying to organize anything and there's no black women at that table. Or there ain't no Muslims at that table. There ain't no Latinos at that table, undocumented people on that table, women at that table. We have to understand that we need to create spaces that are reflective of the country that we live in if we want to say that we are the true face of America. So when we are organizing, when we are thinking about creating those committees, or we are thinking of putting together a platform that is supposed to be reflective of all of us, then all of us need to be at that table. So, when the Women's March on Washington was getting organized, you all know the story, it started out with white women. We could have let those white women organize the Women's March on Washington. They would have done a great job and they would have probably got millions of people to come out and have a march on January 21st. Why did women of color join that effort? Because I wasn't about to let white women have a march and put out a platform and say that this platform represents all women in America. That our voices as women of color, as Muslim women, as black women, as Latina women, as Asian American and Pacific Islanders, as LGBTQI communities, we had to be at that table. And when we came to that table, we put forth the most intersectional platform that our generation has ever seen, a very bold platform where we all saw ourselves in it. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't. But it was a lot of progress from what we have seen for a really long time. So that's the importance of diversifying the movements that we are a part of, because then what happens is more people see themselves in the movement. Sisters and brothers, we can't keep preaching to the choir. We're not enough. We are not enough. And this reminds me that the choir too needs to practice singing. Oftentimes, you know, we are like, oh, we're so intellectual, we already good on this, we got good politics. That's not enough anymore. Being intellectual is not enough for the movement. Your intellectualism will not protect me if an officer comes to my house or if there's a sweep of Muslims in this country. Your degrees, your books that you have written will not protect my family, just like it did not protect Japanese Americans in these United States of America. I'm sure that when Japanese Americans were interned in this country, I'm pretty sure there was a room full of people like you that was like, this is outrageous. I'm pretty sure there are people sitting back at home being like, wow, man, this is really bad. Like, I don't agree with this. From the comfort of their couch, from behind that kitchen window while they saw their Japanese American neighbors and their children be dragged off and put in camps on this US soil. So what you have to understand is that we're not enough. And that I, as a Muslim American, what makes me more honorable than a Japanese American? Do I love my children more than Japanese Americans love their children? Do I have a job that is more honorable than the jobs that Japanese Americans had? What makes me think as a Muslim that I'm going to be immune to a horror like Japanese internment when I live in a country that massacred indigenous people, forcibly enslaved black people, engaged in segregation and in mass incarceration and mass deportation, not under Trump, but under the Obama administration. So people will say, no, Linda, that's not going to happen. You know, they won't, no, what? They said, oh, Muslim ban, that was just campaign rhetoric. You know how it works in politics. They just want to get votes. They weren't even a week in and they was already trying to ban the Muslims. Just like we banned the Chinese at one point in our history. So what I want you to understand is that we have to build a collective movement that is about asking ourselves a question. What are we each individually willing to risk for the other? Are you ready to take the leadership of black women who are telling us we must love and protect one another, and that is an act, not just a mantra or a chant that we use in the movement? Are you ready to be on a train like Ricky Best and Towson and step in for a young black woman and her Muslim friend and lose your life because you wanted to stand up against injustice in a public space? Are you ready to do that? You know, we also gotta question the way we operate in the left. Y'all be using words that people don't understand because we are talking only to each other. If my Palestinian immigrant mother does not understand what you are saying, then you ain't doing it right. So when y'all talking about heteropatriarchy, I don't know what, I'm gonna give you an example. I did a little research on my own. I went up to random people in the street one day just because I wanted to see if I was the crazy one. I asked people, hey, you know, I keep hearing this word, I don't know what it means, I'm just wondering if you know. Please define neoliberalism. I swear to God, I challenge you to do this, so I'm not the only crazy one. Either people told me they really didn't understand what neoliberalism was, or they thought it was actually something good. They're like, well, it sounds like, I don't know, something liberal, like it sounds pretty progressive. So what I'm saying to you is that we have to use accessible language, that the people that we are trying to bring into our movements have to understand what you are saying. They have to relate on a very deep and universal and personal level. So you can be intellectual all you want, you can have conversations with the people that are around you, and that's cool, and I'm not saying not to use those words, but I want you to understand that we got to get deep into these communities. Communities who English is not their first language. Communities who don't have 28 master's degrees and may not even have a high school diploma. People who have literacy rates that are maybe 6th grade level. So let's start talking the language of the people. And let me tell you why the opposition gets a little farther sometimes than we. They simple. Make America great. Who don't want to make America great? I want to make America great too. It's what I try to do every day when I wake up in the morning. So we got to start using language that brings people together and lets us see each other in one another. So accessibility of language in the communities that we are trying to organize is key for us to make this room 20 times fold in the left. And what I want to say to all of you here in this room, and I specifically want to talk to my white allies, we got to get our cousins. And white folks got to get your cousin, because a lot of us in this room, and I don't consider myself to be white, I'm a very proud woman of color as an Arab woman. It is the US Census and the government that said I was white, and I'm not about to let the government tell me what kind of race I am or what kind of woman I am. But for white folks in this room, oftentimes you may be progressive and on the left, but you got family members who ain't progressive. So before you start trying to tell other people how to organize, let's start having those courageous conversations in the families and communities that we come from. Because it's often those that we love that vote against our special interests. Now, self-righteous politics. Let's be real. The left engages in self-righteous politics. The kind of politics that I want to engage in is called collective liberation. Sometimes I have to make a decision and make a judgment call at that moment. I might think to myself, you know what, I'm not really feeling this decision right now. It's not really my personal decision that I would make. But you know what? I'm thinking about black people. I'm thinking about Muslims. I'm thinking about LGBTQIA communities. I'm thinking about the most marginalized communities who have already been on the chopping block in this country, and under an administration like this one, they just got higher up on the list of those who are going to be the first to go out once this administration continues the work that they are doing. So what I'm saying to you here is sometimes it ain't about your individual politics. It ain't about you on an individual level. Are there going to be moments where you are willing to show up in a space that ain't about you, that's about black people, that's about Muslim people, that's about undocumented people? So we gotta understand that if we are truly in a movement to uplift all of us, that we have to understand that sometimes we gotta put our little self-righteous one-issue politics to the side and understand that a decision may actually save another community or even save an individual. And what I also say to white people who are organizing this movement, many of whom are my allies, and in fact, many of you may already know that I've been under vicious attacks by the right wing, by the alt-right, by right-wing Zionists, and those who have stood up for me have been predominantly progressive Jews in New York City who I love dearly, and I would do anything for them because they show and embody true solidarity and allyship as they have stood in front of me, behind me, and next to me. And the reason why I bring up my Jewish sisters and brothers, in particular from groups like Jewish Voices for Peace and Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, is because they embody this quote that I work from. This is the place that I work from. It's a quote by an Aboriginal woman by the name of Leela Watson, and she says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because you believe that your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." So you are not saving Muslims. You are not saving black people from police brutality and mass incarceration. You come to these movements because you may not be directly impacted, but you are not free because we are not free, because black people are not free, because undocumented people are not free in this country. So we gotta put that savior stuff to the side and understand that we're building a collective movement with the understanding that when one of us is not free, whether they are out here in this world and not free or behind bars and not free, then none of us are free. So, I hope that when you leave here and this entire conference, that you understand that we have to multiply the left times 20,000 folds, and that we have been a great choir and have done and raised awareness on many issues. The time for raising awareness is over. It's very clear to me what the problems are. The time for now is mass mobilization. The time for now is mass organizing, door knocking, making sure that we are going to the most downtrodden who are not actually at the front lines of these movements in the way that they need to, because they also don't have the accessibility to be here. That when we are talking about organizing, that we, those who have some means, are putting our money where our mouths are, that we make sure that people can get to a conference like this if they can't get here, even if that means that we buy them a Metro card. And that if we're going to Washington, D.C., that there are buses that are taking those from the corners of Brownsville to the corners of South Brooklyn to the corners of the Bronx, that they too get access to the various movement spaces that have oftentimes been movement spaces of elitists who know big words and have big degrees and know how to talk about important things. Let's remember the most important people are poor people, working class people, people of color who need to be centered in the movement that we claim to be a part of.
I think if you want to hear more from people like those that you've heard from tonight, I do urge you to check out the Laura Flanders Show. Sign our sign-up sheet at the back. I think we can consider the 2017 Left Forum well kicked off, kicked in the ass and kicked off. I want to thank Wally Crabapple, Glenn Ford, Sekou Odinga, Oscar Lopez Rivera, and Linda Sazor, and all of you. Have a great night and a great weekend.
Born with this, other than Glenn Ford. I was standing around to hear Jeremy Scale, and he didn't even talk.
Hey, it's Todd Giffen and Dr. Farber at Left Forum 2017, guys.
Yeah.
Peace out. We'll be back tomorrow. The day is over. We're gonna go meet famous people, see what they have to say. We're gonna hand out flyers to Lower Flanders and others, and go do whatever we gotta do. Alright, we'll see you later. I'll take pics with them and selfies. Check out trumpsweapon.com.